Xi Jinping made an urgent statement today, declaring that China is effectively entering a state of war following threats from Donald Trump. China has promised to increase its support for Russia after Donald Trump threatened to strike Moscow's trading partners. This refers to the tariffs promised by Trump, 100% if Moscow does not agree to peace within 50 days. In fact, today the leader of China, Xi Jinping, stated that China is fully on Russia's side. At a meeting with the head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Sergey Lavrov, in Beijing, the Chinese leader noted that the foreign ministries of the two countries should, quote, effectively implement the important agreements he reached with dictator Vladimir Putin. And after that, the now emboldened Lavrov stated that Trump came under improper pressure from Europe and NATO. That's why he is pursuing such a policy against Russia, which, I remind you, actually started the bloodiest war since World War II. My name is Alexei Pechi. Today is July 15th. In this episode, we will discuss how China today has publicly and openly declared that it supports Russia's war against Ukraine and will do everything possible to assist it. Before we begin, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, give it a like, leave any comment you want, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So the chairman of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping, has promised to strengthen support for Russia amid threats from United States President Donald Trump to impose secondary sanctions on Moscow's trading partners. Let me remind you, Moscow's key trading partners are China, India, Brazil, and Turkey. At a meeting with the head of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Sergey Lavrov, in Beijing, the Chinese leader noted that the foreign ministries of the two countries should effectively implement the important agreements he reached with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and also strengthen mutual support and cooperation on multilateral platforms, such as the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It was within the framework of this summit that Lavrov and Xi Jinping met. Xi also emphasized the need to protect the security and development interests of the two countries, Russia and China. Let me remind you that the day before, on July 14, Trump stated that if Russia does not reach a peace agreement on Ukraine within 50 days, the United States will impose strict 100% tariffs against Moscow and its trading partners, the largest of which is China. Beijing officially, at least publicly, does not support Russia's war against Ukraine and has even proposed its own plan to resolve this conflict. However, here are the sources. Say that at the meeting with the head of European Union diplomacy, Kaja Kallas. In early July, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi stated that Beijing cannot simply allow Moscow to lose this war. He explained that in such a scenario, the United States would completely shift its attention to China. Therefore, it is absolutely in China's interest for Russia to continue a smoldering war, for it to fight slowly but steadily, and even more so, it is not in China's interest for Russia to lose this war. That's why they will quietly support Putin's war machine. At the same time, the head of the Chinese Foreign Ministry emphasized that if Beijing were really helping Moscow, the war would have ended a long time ago. Well, did the Russians learn this from the Chinese, or did the Chinese learn it from the Russians? Saying things like, we haven't even started yet, just wait until we do, then you'll see. And before that, as you know, Trump didn't dare to put pressure on China to force Beijing to stop supporting Russia's military machine. And the United States President's administration intends to focus on bilateral issues in relations with China, which Washington considers its main geopolitical rival. For example, during a phone conversation with Xi Jinping in early June, Trump didn't bring up the topic of Russia's war against Ukraine at all, and instead focused mainly on trade. This shows that Trump is trying to completely avoid the topic of Russia's war against Ukraine in his dialogue with China, even though China is deeply involved in this war. Pay attention, now it's already China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Now Xi Jinping is openly saying that yes, we support Russia in this war and we will continue to support it in this war. Trump says they won't discuss it, as these are separate matters and it's best not to connect the war to that. Moreover, during his last visit to Moscow in May of this year, Xi Jinping supported Putin's position on the war against Ukraine. The joint statement by the two leaders said that the war can only be ended by eliminating the root causes of the conflict. This refers to NATO's non-expansion, denazification, demilitarization, and the recognition of the Russian language in Ukraine. All of that, all of it, everything. And Xi Jinping openly says, yes, we support all this nonsense. The leader of China also noted that Beijing and Moscow should take their cooperation to a new level in order to firmly oppose the United States of America and defend the New World Order. In my opinion, that's already as direct as it gets, but Trump says no, these are different tracks. And here it's important to note that right now Sergey Lavrov is on a visit to Beijing. But before that, he spent several days on a similar visit to North Korea. In Pyongyang, where he was negotiating with the local dictator Kim Jong-un about increasing military support from the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. It is already known that Pyongyang has supplied Russia with about 12 million shells so far, and is now preparing a new batch of soldiers to be sent to the front in Ukraine. And now it is becoming increasingly obvious that the Democratic People's Republic of Korea is acting solely on the orders of the Chinese leader Xi Jinping, who now claims that he will provide even more support to the Russian dictator. As you can see, the puzzle is coming together. Lavrov is going to meet with Kim Jong-un. There, they are negotiating the construction of factories that will produce drones, shells, and so on for Russia's war against Ukraine. From there, he flies to Beijing, where Xi Jinping assures him, we will continue to support you. Especially considering Trump's threats. Meanwhile, Trump is granting Putin an additional 50 days. At the same time, a more confident Lavrov stated today in Beijing that the Russian authorities are trying to figure out what motivated United States President Trump to issue an ultimatum to Vladimir Putin about a ceasefire in Ukraine. Lavrov's quote, there were 50 days before, there were 24 hours, and there were 100 days. We've been through all this, and we really want to understand what drives the President of the United States. It's almost like a mockery now. According to Lavrov, the European Union and the North Atlantic Alliance could have played a key role in this. Quote, it's clear that Trump is under enormous, I would even say indecent pressure from the European Union and the current NATO leadership, who are openly supporting the demands of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to continue supplying him with modern, including offensive weapons. Lavrov also accused the European Union, which is preparing its 18th package of sanctions, of trying, quote, to drag the United States into the sanctions vortex because of Trump's threat to impose a 100% tariff on Russia and countries trading with it. Lavrov emphasized that Moscow will cope with any sanctions, the number of which is already unprecedented, and refused to believe that its partners will break the commitments they have made. But in the Kremlin, they're really getting bold right now, which only humiliates Trump himself. Earlier, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko called Trump's demand for Putin to end the war in Ukraine within 50 days strange. He noted that the United States is urging Moscow, not Kyiv, to resolve the situation. Thus, it can be concluded that the West is not genuinely interested in facilitating the successful completion of negotiations. Some claim Kyiv must be coerced to end the war, suggesting Moscow is innocent and hasn't attacked anyone. Another deputy foreign minister of Russia, Sergey, considered any attempts to make demands of Russia unacceptable. Moscow wants the United States and NATO to take its position with utmost seriousness. Not only should ultimatums be avoided, but you should also pay attention to what they're saying. And the Kremlin itself stated that they consider Trump's statements to be very serious and in need of analysis. Next, I will quote the press secretary of the President of the Russian Federation, Dmitry Peskov. For now, there is only one thing that can be said for sure. It seems that such a decision, which is being made both in Washington in NATO countries and directly in Brussels, is perceived by the Ukrainian side not as a signal for peace, but as a signal to continue the war. And so on. Peskov added that Moscow is waiting for Kyiv to propose dates for direct negotiations and remains ready for them. This is just some kind of total mockery. So Peskov is saying, we're already ready for negotiations, didn't you know? We're just waiting for Kyiv to suggest a date so we can hold direct talks. Even Donald Trump has already admitted that we were close to signing a peace agreement at least 4 times, but Moscow disrupted these attempts all 4 times. And here it's worth reminding that, according to sources in the Kremlin, all of Trump's statements supposedly didn't make any impression on Putin. According to them, he intends to continue the war until the West agrees to his terms for a settlement. Among them are the recognition of the Ukrainian regions captured by Russia, Ukraine's neutral status, the reduction of Ukraine's armed forces, and legal guarantees that NATO will not expand eastward. In general, at the end, emotionally, you just want to say, yes, go ahead and punch that balding dictator in the face already. Otherwise, he won't calm down. He'll keep foaming at the mouth. He'll keep threatening the whole world. While people like Trump say, well, let him fight for another 50 days. But in 50 days, I will definitely strike. Before, we used to laugh about just 2 weeks. Because Trump would say in 2 weeks, look, in 2 weeks there will be sanctions. In 2 weeks, something else will happen. He now has 50 days, so he doesn't have to repeat himself every 2 weeks. He simply says he'll take 50 days. So while Trump is hesitating, China is already saying directly, we support this. Yes, we support Putin in this war, and you can keep making threats. I'll leave it at that. Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe, hit the bell, and like the video. If you want to support the work of this channel, you can do so financially with any donation. Access this using the links and details in the video description or by scanning the on-screen QR code. That's all for now. Take care. Subtitles created by